Welcome back, or if you're new here, hello and welcome. This time I'll talk about what calories are and more about foods, why some are harmful, and what's healthy to eat. I'll also share some information about our number one equal opportunity killer, heart disease. One food to discuss first, however, is salt. Salt improves the taste of our food. The trade-off is that it can increase blood pressure if you eat too much. How much is too much? Well, we'll just look at the slide. The Heart Association says no more than 1,500 milligrams. How much is that? Well, it's just a little over half a teaspoon a day. Our taste buds have short memories. It takes about 3 weeks to get them used to new tastes. Now on to calories. Calories represent a unit of energy in foods we eat. On average, we need 2,000 or more calories a day, depending on what we do. A construction worker needs more than someone who sits at a desk all day. If we eat more calories than we spend for energy, they'll get saved as fat to have in reserve in case food becomes scarce. Which has more calories, a pound of butter or a pound of sugar? Our foods consist of carbohydrates, proteins, fats and oils, and alcohol also provides calories. Carbohydrates and proteins have the same number of calories, 4 per gram. Fats and oils have more than twice that, 9 calories in each gram, and alcohol has 7 calories for each gram. In a pound, there are 454 grams, and in an ounce, 28 grams. A pound of butter has 2¼ times more calories than a pound of sugar. Foods often have mixtures of carbs, fats, protein, and aren't usually just one or the other. Steak has both protein and fat. Fiber, which I'll talk about later, is indigestible, so it doesn't get absorbed and doesn't provide calories. It's not found in foods that come from animal sources. Well, what does the average American eat? This shows the top 10 sources of calories. Soft drinks are in the top 10. There aren't many fruits or vegetables or fiber on this list. Looks also like a lot of sugar. Where is the fiber? To know what you're eating, packages in the stores contain a nutrition label with information. If you look at this example, for a box of macaroni and cheese mix, start at the top, number 1, where it says start here. In light green, there's serving size, 2 cups. Next is number 2, calories, 250, which is for 1 serving. If you ate the whole box, you'd get 500 calories. 3 is in orange, and that shows things that should be limited because they aren't healthy for us. 4, which is in blue, are the things that are good for us. 5 is a footnote, including information about the amount of fat, fiber, sodium, and total carbs. Number 6 in maroon shows the percentage of what experts say we need daily that's provided. Colors are used here to help identify things, but in the stores, nutrition facts are just in black and white. Let's next check out cholesterol in our food in the next slide. Food is the first thing I want to talk about. Food has been divided into different categories. Omnivores eat everything. Vegetarians eliminate meat, and vegans eliminate also eggs, dairy, and processed foods. In restaurants, food seems to be centered around meat. Then there are the vegans, discussed in a previous video. The reasons for avoiding certain foods will be discussed next. As you can see here, there's a lot of cholesterol in the eggs, meat, and dairy foods, with eggs and chicken having the most. Well, more harm than good. Why may these foods cause more harm than good for us? What does the science show? Well, it shows that meat with beef, fish, pork, and poultry increases the risk for heart disease, cancer, and diabetes. Since most Westerners include far more protein than necessary in their diets, that increases the risk for kidney disease and kidney stones, and some types of cancer. As the slide indicates, meat contains cholesterol and are low in antioxidants and have no fiber at all. And fiber is quite health promoting. Antioxidants protect the body from damage caused by harmful molecules called free radicals. Many experts believe this damage is a factor in the development of blood vessel disease, atherosclerosis, cancer, and other conditions. Many berries are high in antioxidants. Animals used for food production account for 97% of all animals killed in the U.S. According to the U.S. Department of Agriculture, in 2012, the average American consumed 71 pounds of red meat and 54 pounds of poultry. That's about 125.3. The average amount, according to the U.S. Department of Agriculture, is probably a bit higher. Let's see about milk and eggs next. Humans are the only species that continues to consume milk after weaning. Saturated fat has been associated with heart disease, our number one killer. Kids are encouraged to drink milk and begin to develop anatomical signs of heart disease before high school. The ads for milk, the number one source of saturated fat in our diet, fail to mention the downside of milk. The science does not confirm either that it helps bones. To increase milk production, cows are often given bovine growth hormone, and there are concerns that that hormone could adversely affect our own abnormal cells. Eggs were at the top of your list for percent cholesterol. One egg has the same amount of cholesterol as a Big Mac. Have you heard of trans fat? When you check the food label for trans fat, also check the food's ingredient list for partially hydrogenated vegetable oil, which indicates that the food contains some trans fat, even if the amount is below half a gram. Trans fat is in baked goods. Most cakes, cookies, pie crusts, and crackers contain shortening, which is usually made from partially hydrogenated vegetable oil. Ready-made frosting is another source of trans fat. Snacks, potato, corn, and tortilla chips often contain trans fat. And while popcorn can be a healthy snack, many types of packaged or microwave popcorn use trans fat to help cook or flavor the popcorn. Fried foods are foods that require deep frying, such as French fries, donuts, fried chicken, and they can contain trans fat from the oil used in the cooking process. Refrigerator dough, products such as canned biscuits and cinnamon rolls often contain trans fat, as do frozen pizza crusts. Creamer and margarine, non-dairy coffee creamer, and stick margarine also may contain partially hydrogenated vegetable oils. Let's see why to worry about trans fat. Trans fat affects our cholesterol, increasing the bad, the LDL, and decreasing the good, HDL. You may not even know you're eating trans fat, because if it has less than half a gram, it's legal for the label to say none. The only safe level is 0. These are combined slides from a previous talk to review the consequences of what food and lifestyle can do. As the cardiologist in the last talk said, he knows he's going to die sometime. He just doesn't want it to be his fault. We do have the ability to control what happens to it. I don't want to oversimplify this because it depends on a number of complex things. Till I began to learn a little bit more about nutrition, I didn't have a clue about what was beneficial in terms of food and what was harmful. At that time, I did know it was dangerous to smoke because I had quit smoking 35 years before after watching an autopsy of a patient who had had lung cancer. It scared the habit out of me. We doctors have been taught to diagnose and treat the symptoms, but not the cause. If your car won't start because the battery is dead, pushing the car to start it has no effect on the battery, which is dead because the lights were left on. We don't want to wait until our battery is dead because we don't know how to restart the brain or the heart. What do you think? Taking care of the cause is very important. If all you do is take a pill for the symptoms but don't change the food, does that affect the cause? What is the cause and how do you deal with that? Wouldn't that make more sense to turn the water off first or correct the food first? To do that, all of these foods make up a vegan diet and have been associated with improving bad health. It's recommended that you have 5 to 6 servings of fruit throughout the day. And what the healthy choices show here on the right, there's a breakfast with some oatmeal with blueberries and a few more things. There's a lunch with salads without an oil and a veggie soup. And for supper, more salad with dark green leafy lettuce, onions, tomatoes, and a dish of lentils, broccoli, or Brussels sprouts, carrots, and green peas. If you're overweight, you'll lose weight on this. But where will you get your protein? Well, what do cows eat? What did Popeye eat? Protein deficiency has not been a problem for vegetarians who've been eating that diet for years. Even some bodybuilders and athletes are vegans. Vegans do need to take B12 vitamin supplement because the vegetables don't have B12 in them. And B12 supplements are easily available online or in stores, and they're not very expensive. It's okay to celebrate on occasion unless once would get you back on an old habit. It's the overall consistency that's important. Our young children may be the ones at greatest risk of failing to establish a good habit by not sticking to healthy foods consistently. But, 100% of the time is best. 90% is better if you can't do the 100%. Here I'm talking about the diseases associated with nutrition because it works both ways. What you eat can reverse disease as well as cause disease, depending on what you eat. Your body is your best doctor in terms of healing for most things. However, for some things, for example, appendicitis, broken bones, cataracts, acute bleeding, to name a few, our healthcare system is one of the best in the world. It's a complex situation. This slide shows the World Health Organization rankings for 11 countries using the criteria shown on the left. UK, Great Britain, England, and British Isles got the most number ones, followed by Sweden. The dark blues are the top 2 rankings, the lighter blues are in the middle, and the whites are the bottom 2. France is number 1 in terms of healthy lives, and the U.S. is last. Healthy lives indicate wellness in the latter part of one's life. U.S. is number 3 in terms of effective care. In terms of cost per person, New Zealand and UK are the lowest, with the US and then Norway the highest. Seems to cost less to provide number 1 care and more for number 11 care. This is another World Health Organization ranking of the first 50 of 190 different countries. And what's the ranking based on? These were the goals: to make sure you had improvement in the health of the population, responsiveness of the health system to the realistic expectations of the population, respect of persons and patients in the delivery of health services, fairness in financing, and financial risk protection to ensure that poor households should not pay a higher share of their cost on health than richer households. All households should be protected against catastrophic financial loss related to ill health. And what you can see is that France is number 1, USA is 37, just behind Costa Rica. This will be the first of a few talks or discussions about specific diseases over the next few weeks. Cardiovascular is a word that implies heart and blood vessels. When someone has a heart attack, what happens is that one of the blood vessels supplying oxygen to the heart develops a blood clot that prevents oxygen-rich blood from getting past the clot. Atherosclerosis is a condition characterized by cholesterol plaques forming in the inner wall of a blood vessel. Atherosclerosis anywhere is atherosclerosis everywhere. One of the earliest signs of atherosclerosis in males is ED, or erectile dysfunction. And if you're over 40 and have it, you should mention it to your doctor. I'll just be talking here about heart disease for a while, but hypertension is a big part of this as well. President Franklin Roosevelt died from a stroke caused by his abnormally high blood pressure. At that time, doctors thought you needed higher blood pressure to get the blood all the way up to the brain. In April 1945, doctors weren't aware of the association of high blood pressure and stroke. And soon after, studies were begun regarding treatment as a consequence. Atherosclerosis may start when certain factors damage the inner layers of the arteries. Excessive salt intake increases blood pressure. Atherosclerosis causes plaques to build up inside our arteries and limit the flow of blood to important organs. It's been associated not only with heart disease, but also hypertension, low back pain, erectile dysfunction, kidney disease, strokes, and more. This is to introduce Dr. Caldwell Esselstyn, who, for a general surgeon, has been quite productive in the area of heart disease. The second half of his book, Prevent and Reverse Heart Disease, contains vegan recipes his wife has invented or collected. Forks Over Knives is a DVD with Dr. Esselstyn interviewed in part of it. The Journal of Family Practice article is about his research and may be available online. The recurrence of major cardiac events in that article ranged from 5 to 250 per thousand in the 4 different trials discussed. The following video is from a talk he gave about a colleague with acute heart disease and how to reverse it. The entire talk can be found at the website shown on the bottom of the slide.
At age 44 in 1996, he began to get chest pain. He did not have hypertension, he did not have diabetes, he did not have a strong family history, he was not overweight, and cardiology worked him up in October of 1996, could find nothing. 3 weeks later, he was finishing his surgical schedule, sat down to write postoperative orders, splitting headache, immediately followed by this crushing elephant on his chest, pain in his shoulder down his arm. Joe was having a heart attack. Whipped down to the cath lab, start the catheterization, cardiac arrest, resuscitate, and finish the catheterization. And then he's been sent up to the floors and discharged 3 days later, but very depressed. Why? Because what they identified was that his left anterior descending coronary artery in the front of the heart, the entire lower third was moth-eaten and diseased, over too long a segment to have stents, too far down the artery to have a bypass. So he was very depressed about this, so my wife Ann and I had him out to the house with his wife for supper 2 weeks after his heart attack. Joe, he'd been eating his typical Western diet. He got the typical Western disease. We've got 10 years of data. How about going plant-based? Okay, yes, I'll give it a shot. They couldn't offer me anything else. He became the absolute personification of commitment to plant-based nutrition. And over the next 30 months, he then had another angiogram. Now, up in the surgical suites, our offices are 3 doors apart. And at noontime of the day that I knew earlier that morning he had his follow-up angiogram, I found myself letting myself into his office. There he was sitting behind his desk. Joe, I understand you had the old follow-up angiogram this morning. Mind sharing with me how'd it go? Got up around his desk, put his arms around me. I think we're doing okay. Well, any chance I could see the follow-up angiogram? Yeah. So it was really quite striking and exciting to to see what actually can happen. When you give the body every opportunity it can, the healing capacity is incredible. So now let's talk a little bit about.
These are my recommendations for this time. All the videos are online. Some of the books are relatively new. Nathan Pritikin's isn't and can be bought used if it's not in the library. His interview by Dr. McDougall is the first video listed above. Well, we've come to the end of today's video. Next time I'll be talking about the second leading cause of premature death, cancer, as well as obesity. Questions are encouraged. Email to leeschillingmd@gmail.com and I'll answer as quickly as possible. Thanks for your attention. Be back in a week.